I obviously got diagnosed with a condition called chronic granular myelofibrosis disorder, or CGD, is far easily more known. I got fungal pneumonia. I was in hospital as an inpatient probably for a couple of months, and then beyond that for about sort of 5-6 months afterwards, I'd then go into hospital every day for 3-4 hours worth of treatment. Between the ages of 15 and 18, got fungal pneumonia 3 times, and it was strain on my body, strain on my family, and strain on my life. At that age you want to be out with your mates playing football, want to be playing golf, want to just be going out and enjoying myself and being a teenager, and I kind of got sort of stripped of all that, really. Literally, it was usually people go away and say, oh, I'll have a think and let's discuss the options, and I literally stopped them mid-presentation and just went, let's do it. And I've never known a silence like it in the room. So my parents were there. I think one of the staff from Jersey Hospital were there, and then we had the doctor and one of the nurses from London. The whole room went silent, and honestly, for probably the longest 30 seconds ever. It was a real lottery how I feel each day. I'd have some good days and I'd have some really bad days, but the highs were high and the lows were lows. A massive gulf between them. There was no sort of steady eddy. It was one or the other. Every single person involved in supporting me, to be honest with you, saved my life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by sport fanatic, football fan and player, coach, and soon to be marathon runner, Ben Hick. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Very good, thank you. Yeah, yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Not bad. I guess the first question on Sportscast Jersey today is: have you always been sporty?
I've certainly always been a sports fan, yeah, for sure. My dad got me into golf. That's sort of my first real sport from a very, very young age, sort of 4 or 5. And then, sort of brought me up a West Ham fan. So I've always followed football. And as I've got older, just sort of picked up enjoying more sports along the way. So now obviously I absolutely love sport. Yeah, pretty much all sport I'm interested in now. So, I think from a young age, I've always had that. Obviously played in a few competitions when I was younger, but mainly just been out and active, and my mum and dad and parents have always encouraged it. So always loved sport. Yeah.
We're recording this on the day that my club's playing your club.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. But yeah, how do you think it's going to go tonight? Obviously, this is going out tomorrow, so we'll know when it's out. But
do you know what, mate? I don't know. Since the turn of the new year, obviously we've been a little bit improved. I think we've only lost twice. But it's too many draws, and you boys are really a team on the up at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any stopping you. Ten Hag's turn you into an absolute machine, and I think big thing will be depends on the lineups. How both teams go for it. Obviously, we're both in European competitions at the moment, and obviously you're pushing at the very, very other end of the table to us. So I think it'll depend how both managers view the fixture, but I think it will certainly be a good game. It always tends to be against with our two teams, doesn't it? I'm a bit more confident if it's London Stadium. Our away form has left a lot to be desired this year, so. Yeah, I can't say I'm going into it overly confident, but it's the FA Cup, mate. It's full of surprises. So
let's see.
You never know. I'd like to think we'll get the job done, and Moisey's boys will do the business. But if you boys put out a strong lineup, it's going to be very, very tough to compete with you, of course.
Yeah, let's see. Obviously you're coaching this year as well. How's that going for you at St. Peter?
Loving it. I mean, in terms of a club to coach for, I've obviously coached at St Clement before and coached at St Peter. I think for me, two of the best clubs on the island for supporting coaches as a start. I think if you're going to go into coaching, you do need help. And that starts with the club you're at. But no, look, St Peter's been brilliant. Obviously, I've only really sort of dabbled in senior coaching before. My sort of my history's basically been in junior coaching, but it's been great. Obviously doing it with as a co-manager with my really good friend Chris Gill, and it's been a really good season. We've learned a lot. We're sort of learning as we go. We're very lucky to have a lot of our friends, friendship group have joined to play with us. So that's been great, obviously, for us all to be together and experience the season. And yeah, for us, obviously, St. Peter's got a brilliant junior setup. It's been great to bring some of the younger lads through. A couple of them have already pushed on and pushed higher, which has been, for us really pleasing. Obviously, it's disappointing to lose them when they're good players, but for us, to see them, go up into the reserves and beyond is, is a real big sort of bonus and a real target for us. It's not about bringing all our mates together and playing, which we've always wanted to do. And it's been great to have that opportunity to do that. But another main factor for us was trying to bring young lads through, and obviously we've managed to build a really good squad. It's been enjoyable. I think our results have been a little bit up and down, but we're still in two cups. We're in the bowl and in the tradesman. So we've got two semi-finals coming up in the next couple of weeks, which is exciting. So to try and get one or two trophies under our belt and finish as high up the league as we can would be a really pleasing season for a first year together. It's Chris's first year in management, my sort of first year in a sort of co-lead role in senior football, but it's been brilliant. And as I say, St. Peter's have been fantastically supportive for us all season, and the lads have been great, and it's been really good. So it's a great league to be as well, very competitive as well, which is what you want. You don't want to be turning up and having say sort of some so-called whipping boys as such. And it's been a really competitive league. We've been challenging every game we've played, and I think that's a brilliant advertisement for Jersey football, particularly at our level.
Yeah, definitely. And for yourself personally, what do you prefer? Do you prefer coaching or do you prefer playing?
Oh, that's a tough. I do love. That's a really tough question. I love coaching. I think there's a lot sort of less work in playing. You're sort of turning up with your boots, and I don't get me wrong, I really do miss playing. Sometimes you sort of join in the odd training session, you realize how much you miss it. But they're both brilliant for two different reasons. I enjoy the coaching side of it. I enjoy the planning sessions and working out how we're going to set the lads up each week and planning for games. I really enjoy that side of it. But it's a tough one. I've got to say, I do probably prefer playing just because there's a lot less work involved.
Yeah.
But I've got to say, actually, I do think the coaching's far more rewarding. I think we've had fixtures this season. We played obviously one reserves in the cup, just as a particular example. And me and Chris were chatting about it. We set up with a particular game plan, changed our formation, and it paid off. Obviously, they're a division above a very, very good side as well. It paid off and we won. And that to me was more rewarding than winning if I'd played. Because we both Chris and I had come up with a great plan, and the lads, all credit to them, executed it brilliantly. And that getting a win like that, is satisfying. But honestly, sometimes being stood on the sideline and not being able to sort of physically do anything about, you can put the lads on, but not actually being able to influence the game on it's a very different challenge. But I'd say I do probably enjoy playing more because I love playing football. But that's not to speak any little of coaching. So I've absolutely loved this season. I've always loved coaching. I loved it when I was at St. Clement as well. So if I had to pick one, it'd probably be playing. But I do really enjoy coaching it. Yeah, and that's it. And you still feel just as involved. You're involved on the match day, and that's great. It's just there's obviously a little bit more. To be honest, it takes up more of your Saturday and the days preceding it. Like I say, when you get wins like we did against St. Juan, and we've had a couple other great results this year, that buzz it makes it worthwhile. And I'd actually say the buzz is probably a little bit higher.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on a bit now. Going back, you in your teenage years, especially, it was a tough time for you. Can you explain kind of what you went through, the illnesses back then, and how much it did affect you?
Yeah, so I mean, going way back, I obviously got diagnosed with a condition called chronic granular marrow disorder, or CGD, as it's far easily more known. And with that's basically an immune deficiency. So my body couldn't fight off certain infections, and one of those was being fungal pneumonia. And so I was lucky enough to be, when I was diagnosed when I was sort of 3 or 4. I kept very well up until I was sort of 14, 15. And then, as your sort of question asked, fast forwarding into the teenage years, I ended up getting fungal pneumonia, sort of while I was doing my first year of GCSEs, I think it was. So it was obviously a pretty sort of stressful time. Obviously trying to do exams. Obviously, my health came first, had to come first, always does. But trying to juggle all that. So I got fungal pneumonia. I was in hospital as an inpatient probably for a couple of months, and then beyond that, for about sort of 5-6 months afterwards, I'd then go into hospital every day for 3-4 hours worth of treatment. So it's very straining, not just on me, but on my family as well. Trying to get through school, trying to be well enough for school, and then leaving, going to the hospital. That was tough. Sort of, they thought I'd recovered from it. All my results came back pretty well, but yeah, I found myself 2 years later, and then 3 years later, back in hospital with the same thing. The thing with fungal pneumonia is that if you don't get it all, some of it does stay dormant in your body. It obviously resides in the lungs. It's very easy to come back, particularly when your immune system's sort of low, and that can come from, obviously your immune system lowers when you're tired. So, if I'm more obviously being active, want to be out and about, I was playing football, enjoying myself, and things like that. As your body gets sort of more tired, it then gave an opportunity for it to grow, and it came back twice. So when I was sort of, between the ages of 15 and 18, I got fungal pneumonia 3 times, and it was, strain on my body, strain on my family, and strain on my life. At that age, you want to be out with your mates playing football, want to be playing golf, want to just be going out and enjoying myself and being a teenager. And I kind of got sort of stripped of all that, really, because I'd say 70% of that time was spent at least once a day going into hospital. So it was a tough time in my life, for sure. And obviously juggling GCSEs and A levels at the same time, it didn't really leave much time for much else, which it was a shame. It was tough, but we got through it eventually, which is pleasing thing.
When did the decision come for you to have the bone marrow transplant? And how tough was that decision?
So the decision came after getting the pneumonia for the third time. Once I'd recovered from that, it sort of felt like enough was enough. There was no way to live your life by constantly going into hospital. Just for, even if at the latter stages, it was just for 3-4 hours, but it's 3-4 hours out your day. You're planning your whole day around it. It's like, do I go in the morning, the evening? Do I go the afternoon? Have I got school? Or, at that point, I'm trying to meet up with my friends, even if it's just go to the cinema and stuff. I'm trying to do things like that to get some sort of resonance of a normal life. So the decision came after the third time. It had been considered before. It was considered when I got diagnosed with it. But I mean, back when I was diagnosed, God, that would have been 98, 99. It just wasn't a safe procedure then at all. It was basically a life or death. Is this lad going to survive with it? Yes. Okay, we're not going to touch it then. Then fast forward to sort of 15, 16, when I got fungal pneumonia, it was like, okay, do we look at it now? And it's like, okay, well, no, he's been really well, and he's got one bout of fungal pneumonia. We think we've got it. Let's relax. The second one came back, and then it was like, okay, consideration. But even then, it was still dangerous. And after the third, it was like, come on, I've got to do it now. I think I had a pretty frank discussion with my family and some of the medical staff here in Jersey as well. Some of the doctors, and I went, look, I really think this is something we've got to consider now. And it went from sort of 0 to 100 pretty quickly. So we really looked into it. While a bone marrow transplant is still dangerous at the time, it was still a risky procedure, and sort of process to go through. It was one of those where, but it's now worth the risk. It's like, you're taking away pretty much all your life at the moment. Not necessarily physically, but time wise. It's so tough. So we looked into it, and then in terms of taking the decision, we basically had a consultancy meeting with the guys at UCLH, so University College Hospital London, and they spoke through the transplant, spoke through everything that was going on, and literally, it was usually people go away and say, "Oh, I'll have a think and let's discuss the options." And I literally stopped them mid presentation and just went, "Let's do it." And I've never known a silence like it in the room. So my parents were there. I think one of the staff from Jersey Hospital were there, and then we had the doctor and one of the nurses from London. The whole room went silent, and honestly, for probably the longest 30 seconds ever. If you just sit silent for 30 seconds, it's a long while, and just what's going on, and you're like, what? And I was like, let's just do it. For me, I weighed it up, and I was like, I can't keep going on like this. It's worth the risk now. Let's just roll the dice, and doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can cross that bridge, but I can't live like this now. So for me, it became an easy decision, but I was sort of forced into it. I think that's the best way, because after three or 4 years going into hospital pretty much every day for 8-month spells.
Yeah.
Was yeah, it was like, yeah, this is stupid. Now let's do it. Let's see what happens. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't go well, let's cross that bridge. But if it does go well, it's the pathway to a new life. So yeah.
Obviously it did go well, but how was the whole process for you? The surgery itself, the recovery afterwards. How tough was that?
So yeah, I mean, a bone marrow transplant itself, there is no real sort of surgery. It's not like a heart transplant or a lung transplant. So you basically go through chemotherapy, about a week's worth. So I had it done on the Teenage Cancer Trust ward in London. So that I mean, that in itself was going there was an eye-opening experience. It was, some incredible people up there, not just nurses and the staff there, but the patients. I've never known a group of such strong individuals in my life. They were just, it's a real eye-opening experience to talk to them. And yes, you had chemotherapy for a week. That wipes out your whole immune system. And then from there, then basically when they extract the bone marrow, it's in basically like a bag.
Yeah.
A bit like when you have a blood transplant, essentially, you sort of just get plugged in and they feed it into your bloodstream. So the only operation I had two, was to have quite aptly named Hickman lines. So I had two of them put in up here.
Yeah.
Because one broke, so I had another one put in, which is basically obviously just a way they go straight into your jugular vein because the sort of drugs you're getting are pretty hardcore. So they've got to put it into a vein that'll be able to take it. But that was it. Apart from, so when it came to transplant day, it was, I'm just hooked up to a machine. I'm just sort of sat there and it's fed in, and once it's in, and that's it. Then it's a case of, does your body accept it or not? Because obviously it's a foreign material. It's something your body's not used to. That's the real risk of the whole surgery, is your body rejecting it. If your body rejects it, then it's a case of they have to get it out your system as soon as possible, because otherwise then it starts to affect other bodily parts that, the function might shut down, particularly liver, bladder areas where the liquid will go. So yeah, that's the risk. There is a big risk of your body shutting down, basically, if it doesn't accept it. There's a long process when it comes to trying to find the donor, find the right one. There's certain factors they look out for. And yeah, so that was the big risk. I think the process itself, the build up was fine.
Yeah.
I had the chemotherapy. That doesn't really hurt. You're just being, again, pumped full of certain medicines, things like that. I think the real part that hit me hard, and it was about a month period, I'd say maybe 3 weeks to a month, was when my body was trying to accept it, and I was really, really unwell. I'd be sleeping for 18 to 20 hours a day. Just being really quite sort of violently unwell. My body was aching, just really struggling daily when I was awake. And I was on basically given an artificial immune system, so I basically constantly be hooked up to a drip with different medicines being pumped into my body that acted as an artificial immune system while the new one grew.
Yeah.
So then you also had all the side effects of those medicines being put on top of it, but it's something that you had to do and you just have to push through. There's nothing else you can do about it. So I spent a little while sedated as well. Some pretty hefty painkillers just to basically settle me down. And I remember having a pretty bad allergic reaction to one of the drugs, and it was it basically just made me go mental. Like I completely lost control of my body, just started just getting really sort of tense and aggressive, and just not hitting out at anyone. It was just a case of just going punching a mattress and just not knowing what to do. So I had to pin me down and sedate me again, and stuff. They're I had an allergic reaction basically, which is the only actual allergic reaction to medicine I've ever had, which, given the amount I've tried, is quite surprising. But yeah, that was the toughest bit. That sort of 3-4 week period was just really horrible, and particularly on my family as well, because my mum and dad came over to London with me for the whole time, and them having to watch that kind of, for me experiencing it, when I spend a lot of the time sedated, I'm sort of out of it. For them, they're conscious the whole time. They know, they go home at night, obviously, because they didn't stay, because I just didn't want them to. I wanted to go and have a good night's sleep. Not to be sat up in a hospital chair all night. And just sort of the worry when they leave, not knowing what I'd be like when I came back in the morning. It was a real lottery how I feel each day. I'd have some good days and I'd have some really bad days, but the highs were high and the lows were low. It was a massive gulf between them. There was no sort of just sort of steady Eddie. It was one or the other.
Yeah.
So that period was tough, but yeah, I think that the start was okay. To be honest, I have to go into a transplant in as peak, physical and mental condition as I possibly can. Before the transplant, I basically experienced what it's like to do a football player's medical, which was quite a fun experience. I asked them,
Yeah.
a lot of the tests I went through were very, very similar to what they do. You got me on a treadmill and, in one of the sort of like the masks and everything, and had every scan under the planet, my whole body. I don't think I'd ever never known what condition my body was like in more detail ever. Really quite interesting. But I was in, going into it, I felt, really good and, as good as good can be anyway. The first part was okay as sort of immune system was being sort of killed off, and then the new one being put in. But then once you could tell the immune system got a grip of my body, then we went downhill for a bit. And although it was all for the greater good and it was all working fine, it was just tough to push through it. And then once it sort of settled down and really started to accept, that's when I gradually got more and more energy.
Yeah.
But the amount of energy I got eclipsed anything I'd ever had, because my body was like, oh my God, right, we're well. Wow, okay, right, here we go. And then all of a sudden I had all the energy. And it was like I was just stuck in this little box room in isolation, because you've got to wait for a certain number of, certain count in your blood before they release you, basically.
Yeah.
I was going like, I just need to get out. They brought me like pedals into the room to try and let me do exercise, and I'd be spending like hours at a time just pedaling on these like things just because my legs wanted to get going. I was buzzing. So yeah, the process for 3-4 weeks was incredibly tough, incredibly stressful. It was horrible, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But beyond that, once it settled and you felt like it was working, even everything physically, internally, mentally, it just gave you a big boost. You're like, oh my God, I really think this might have worked. And then then here we are.
Yeah, great. How thankful are you to the doctors and also to everyone who supported you, from different charities to your parents, your family, your friends? How thankful are you to all of those guys?
Mate, where do I even begin? Every single person involved in supporting me, to be honest with you, saved my life. There's no two ways about it. That is literally it in black and white, because I think without this transplant, I'm not sure how many more sort of fungal pneumonias my body could have really taken, because there's a big stress on your liver and bladder from the kind of intense medication you're getting given. Obviously, it's in your lungs. Still got quite a bit of scarring on my lungs, so that their capacity's dropped. Obviously, again with your heart, everything internal, it's such a strain that I don't really know, how much of my body, much more my body could have taken. So yeah, I really can't thank everyone enough, to be honest with you. I sometimes struggle to put it into words, because my family and friends, to have that support, I couldn't have done it without my mom and my dad being there. My grandparents came here to look after my sister, and so thankful for them, because that took sort of one burden off my parents, because they were dealing with this. And it's all those kind of almost like indirect supports as well that you kind of sometimes don't perhaps think about, but you realize now that actually you're taking the burden off someone who's then helping take the burden off me, and it's like a chain. But no, my mom, my dad, I'll never be able to repay what they did for me and what they've done for me in life. Even since I was diagnosed with CGD, they've supported me my entire life. And yeah, no matter what I do now, I'll never be able to repay them for that, because it's just, there's no value, there's no worth you could put on it. And then everyone, obviously my friends, constantly getting messages from back home while I was in London. A few of the guys, came over to see me. And I don't think it's really sort of goes under the radar just how much of a boost it gives you just to hear from someone. I obviously have my Facebook page and stuff, because I was getting so many lovely messages, but not having the strength to reply sort of made me feel bad. So actually going into it, I spoke to a few people that had transplants before, and they said set up a Facebook page, and then when you're feeling well enough, update it, because then you're speaking to everyone at once, and then those messages you can reply to do, but I'm pretty sure people will understand that sometimes you can't. But having that page just allowed me to speak out to everyone, and also on a personal level, I can go back and read it now, and it's amazing to read some of the entries, and it's like a personal diary there, and that that'll be there forever, which is lovely. So I can't thank my friends enough, and then just the medical staff from everywhere. For starters, from Robin Ward in Jersey, those guys. I also went to see them three times in 4 or 5 years, and they were phenomenal. Every nurse, every doctor, every single person involved, because to be honest with you, I probably perhaps should have gone to the UK for the treatment. But they've made special dispensations and everything to bring the medicine over here to make sure I could be treated at home. And they bent over backwards, to support me. And that's incredible. And then obviously the staff at the Teenage Cancer Trust ward in London, they were the ones that obviously did the transplant. And they it's not just about them popping into deliver the medicine and things like that. They'd come in and sit with me at night and play on the PlayStation with me, and just sit and play board games, and just come in and it wouldn't just be straight down to business. They'd just chat and just go, just ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, things like that. I think, yeah, that's it. It's just like, how's it going? Or did you watch the game last night, or what have you been up to, or things like, do you want a game of FIFA? Things, honestly, things like that. And it's little things, especially when you're in that situation, notice there's the little things that people do that mean so much. Obviously, the big things obviously mean loads, but it's the tiny little things. Just, going a couple of games of COD tonight, or, fancy, I was going to get a takeaway in, shall I come and eat it in here with you and we'll have it? Yeah. Things like that. Just, you can't describe just how much that stuff means. And it gives you such a different aspect on life as well, and such a newfound respect for the little things. And which I think, goes a long way. But I've tried there, but I could probably speak for 3 hours, 4 hours, 3 minutes about trying to say thank you to everyone, because literally anyone involved in supporting me, helping me medically, family wise, friends, they've literally saved my life. There's no other way of putting it. So I'll never be able to repay that debt. It's phenomenal. It means so much.
Yeah, fantastic. London Marathon soon for you. You're going back to London where it all happened. Why the London Marathon, and also why for the charity that you're doing it for, Anthony Nolan?
So Anthony Nolan are the guys that found my donor. So it's what they do. They hold one of the biggest registers in the UK, if not possibly the world, when it comes to stem cell donations. And so those are the guys that we went through. So we went through their sort of Jersey branch of it, and that, but also Anthony Nolan is a big UK charity. So I wanted to run it for them. There are a number of charities I could have run it for. To be honest with you, there are so many that have helped me, but these guys, the ones that found me my donor, that supported my family, through it, supported me through it, and they've done so much that, I wanted to run for them. I always wanted to do something to pay them back, and I wanted to make sure it was the right thing at the right time. And my sister and one of my best mates, Tom Turkey, who obviously a few guys probably watching this will know, they ran it last year. My sister ran it for Teenage Cancer Trust, and Tom ran it for Anthony Nolan. And I went to watch, and it's my first. I'd been to the London Marathon when I was younger because my dad was a big runner, but only when I was younger. I didn't really remember it. I went last year and saw the occasion, and I just didn't realize just how big it was. The streets from every mile we watched at were packed. And it's not just cheering for people that they know; it's cheering for everyone. And it's just such a brilliant day where, for all the criticism London gets, it's days like that where you realise that it is one hell of a community over there. It reminded me of Jersey. The support you get there reminded me exactly of what Jersey's like. Everyone pulls together in the right direction, will support anyone and everyone if they need it. And as much as London does get its criticisms, that day I just was like, wow, this is a special event. It's incredible. Millions of people out to support. And in terms of why the London Marathon, so my dad did it, many years ago. And obviously with my sister and Tom doing it, so I kind of got the inspiration from that. And with this year being the 10-year anniversary of my transplant, I just thought it was right to go back to London and almost kind of complete the arc, as it were. The full story arc. That I don't actually know if we necessarily run past the hospital, but we'll be nearby, and it'll be mad to think. So my transplant was on the 21st of June, and this will be the 23rd of April. So it's almost 2 months out, but you're almost 10 years to the day that 10 years earlier I'm lying in a hospital bed, got no hair. I'm about to be given my stem cells, and I'm not really knowing whether I'm going to make it out the other side. And now I'm in a position where I'm fit enough to run. Well, hopefully fit enough to run run 26.2 miles for the charity that got me through it. So the London Marathon was always going to be special. It was always going to be the one. It felt right to go back there. And as I say, sort of complete the arc of the story. And yeah, it'll just be a special day. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. And is there goals for you to beat your dad's time, to beat your
Oh
sister's
no,
time?
sure. No, me and my dad are massively competitive, but he's a very, very good runner. I think his best time is something like 3:42.
Wow. Yeah.
Very, very good. I won't touch that. For me, I just want to finish it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll have, I'm still not sure whether I'm going to get the bug for running that distance. Afterwards we'll see, but for me, just getting over the finish line is my first goal, my main goal.
Yeah.
Love to do it sub 4.5. That's the time I've sort of given as an indication. Would love to do that. Anything sort of 4:20 something, I'm buzzing.
Yeah.
4:29:59, no problem.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as much, you never know. I could surprise myself. The occasion could get to me, and yeah, it could be. Yeah, I might surprise myself, but I'm not sure I'll quite touch that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
he is a very, very good runner, and I'll give him that. So yeah, don't tell him
Yeah.
myself, but yeah, I won't touch that time. But just getting across that finish line will be special.
Yeah, for sure. Final question. What would your advice be to anyone going through a tough time right now, or who have been through a tough time, or have tough times in the future that they don't know about yet? But what would your be advice to get through it mentally as well as physically?
Um, I think first and foremost, talk to people and get yourself a support network. I think it's very, very easy, and I'm speaking from experience, to try and wear the burden of something on your own. You can sometimes think, oh, I don't want to sort of burden someone else with my problems. They probably got their own. I think the first thing I say is everyone has problems. Everyone does. And if you don't, you're probably lying to yourself. But firstly talk to people, and I know it's a big thing at the moment with obviously men's mental health and that, and sort of speaking out, and whether it's privately, publicly, doing whatever. It's so important to have a support network before you do anything, because I couldn't have done it without my family, my friends, everyone involved. And it's not just the guys that have to be involved, it's also the guys you want to be involved. I don't think any friend or family member would ever criticize you for opening up to them. And even if sometimes what's going on and other people may not know what's going on, it's very easy just to sort of skate on by and not talk to people. So big thing I'd say is get yourself a support network. You have to tell people, talk to people. If you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling sad, if you're excited about something, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It could be good, but just being able to speak openly about it. I find, because when you're doing something, particularly like a transplant or anything along those lines, when you're struggling, a lot of it often has, physical effects. And that's a battle in itself. So I think if you can take away the mental effects by having that support network, because the more you keep up here, the less you're focused on getting better. You're just worrying, and that causes stress, which ironically then lowers your immune system. So being able to pass on any concerns you've got and allow people to help you, I think is another big one as well. Is if people offer help, take it. It's people don't just offer help for the sake of it. They're offering it because they want to help. And even if that's as little as you're sat in hospital and they've made you a cup of tea, like, take it. Don't try and be independent and get through it by yourself. Get through it with people, because that at some stage someone's going to need that help, and that's your chance to repay. You don't have to repay them straight away. You don't ever have to repay them. But I think, talk, get a good support network, and accept people's help. Because I know I was very bad at it at first. I'm very bad at asking for help, and sort of almost help had to be forced upon me to realize that, oh God, actually that's just taken so much weight off my shoulders. And then all of a sudden you actually see the results, that you start to improve. And whether that's having a transplant, you're in hospital for a minor operation, a major operation, you're struggling with your mental health, anything like that, you need people around you, because you can't do it on your own. As a human race, we're not built to do things on our own. We have to have support, whether you're in work, whether you're, even if you're playing an individual, even if you're a golfer, you still got a caddy. Do you know what I mean? No one does anything on their own in life. So why should this be different? So that would be my main advice. Make sure you ask for help and bring people in and around you that are going to build you up when you need building up. are going to bring you back down to earth when you need to be brought back down to earth, and yeah, just help you and be that that sort of sidekick, as it were. And that doesn't mean an individual, that could be a team. Because as I say, we're humans, we're not built to do things on our own. And yeah, when it comes to anything medical or anything in life, I don't know why that should be any different.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Ben. Thank you for speaking so openly,
Thanks
and
for having.
amazing story, and good luck with the marathon as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. It should be good, mate. But thank you so much for having me on. It's a great podcast. So yeah, keep up the good work, mate.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that. Right,
Cheers.
that was Sportscast Jersey with Ben Hick. Another episode is coming soon.